Throw him out. I can smell the streets on him from all the way over here." Preston Holloway's words dropped into the air already thick with the stench of A95 gasoline, the acrid sweetness of synthetic oil, and the faint scorch of burning rubber. Holloway's Elite Motors, a garage for America's elite, where Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and McLarens lined up like steel jewelry, fell silent. This was no place for the penniless. This was a temple of money. Preston never looked up. He sat behind a glass desk in his office that opened directly onto the shop floor, the glow of a MacBook Pro reflecting against titanium frames. His fingers slid across the trackpad, eyes glued to a profit chart. The insult left his mouth between two clicks, cold, mechanical, like hitting delete on a trash file. Kyle, the young mechanic, burst out laughing. It was too loud, too forced, designed to please the boss. He wiped an invisible smear on the hood of a red Ferrari, back bent low, eyes darting toward Preston, hungry for approval. Mitch, the veteran mechanic, didn't laugh. He sat in the driver's seat of a silver McLaren F1, hood popped, turning the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died again. His sigh was heavy, the kind a man breathes after 3 straight days, losing to a silver beast. Behind the parts counter, Ava Chen stayed focused on the computer screen, entering codes, cross-checking diagrams. She was the only one actually doing her job, but no one cared. Elias Vance stood at the doorway. A frayed, fabric coat hung off his shoulders, a faded canvas bag slung across them, shoes worn thin and dusted with road. He did not flinch, did not explain. His gaze locked on the McLaren, a $20 million masterpiece lying dead. He stepped forward slowly. Each footfall rang sharp against the polished epoxy floor, his ragged figure jarring against the showroom. "Shine?" Kyle shot him a mocking look. Mitch frowned a warning. "Can't you read the staff-only sign?" Elias didn't stop. He circled the McLaren, eyes scanning from air intakes to exhaust, ears tuned to the unnatural silence. At the rear, where the ECU sat, he crouched, inhaled lightly, then spoke in a raspy but certain voice. "The fuel pump is fine. The problem's the timing chip in the ECU. It's off by a few nanoseconds." The words landed in the garage like a wrench clattering on concrete. Preston's typing halted. Kyle's cloth froze mid-wipe. Even Mitch held his breath. Nanoseconds. That wasn't a word a drifter should know. That was the language of laboratories. Mitch slowly turned, wrinkled eyes widening. "What did you just say?" His tone shed its gruffness, edged now with real doubt. Preston finally raised his head. He removed his glasses, cleaned them with a silk cloth, stalling for time. He didn't trust intuition, and he certainly didn't trust the uncredentialed. To him, this man was garbage. "Oh, so we've got ourselves an expert? A street genius?" Preston drawled, each syllable dripping sarcasm. Elias didn't blink. He straightened, meeting Preston's gaze. "I can fix it. In exchange for a hot meal, a steak, and a cup of black coffee." It was a transaction, not a plea, not begging. Kyle cackled, slapping the Ferrari's hood. "Hear that? He wants to fix a McLaren for a bowl of soup," Mitch muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone. "Waste of time. I've been at it a week and still nothing." Preston looked at Elias, then at the McLaren. An idea flared, cruel, entertaining. This wasn't a nuisance. It was an opportunity. A chance to mock, a chance to go viral. He rose, pulled out his phone. Not just a camera, but a mini gimbal and a ring light are already set on the desk. He was staging a show. Elias would be the unpaid actor. "Deal," Preston said with a smirk. "But I'm recording everything. Homeless man tries to fix a 20 million supercar. TikTok will eat it up." Elias nodded once, voice dry. "Give me the diagnostic equipment." Kyle laughed harder. Ava stood abruptly, clutching her pen. She wanted to speak, but words strangled in her throat. In Preston's world, kindness was weakness. Elias waited. Preston swung the lens close to his face, whispering, "The show begins, and it'll end." Real quick." At that moment, Ava stepped from behind the counter. She pushed a tool cart forward, the Panasonic Toughbook, the primary diagnostic machine, resting on top. Without a word, she let it slide toward Elias. As she passed him, she murmured low enough only he could hear, "Battery at 87%. Elias set his bag down, calloused hand squeezing the strap briefly, then placed it on the device. He didn't look up. Didn't say another word. The air turned heavy as lead. Preston swung the camera across every face. Kyle's smug grin, Mitch's simmering frustration, Ava's quiet tension. And finally Elias, motionless, intent, like a blade poised. The silver McLaren lay still under the neon lights, less a car than an arena waiting to open. And everyone knew a bomb was about to go off, one way or another. "All right, TikTok, this is going to be fun. He won't even get the engine to turn over." Preston sneered, his voice loud in the camera as he swung his phone close to Elias's face. Elias didn't answer. He lowered himself into the driver's seat of the McLaren, the Toughbook balanced across his lap. But before pressing the power button, his hand paused. His calloused fingers brushed slowly across the McLaren logo etched into the steering wheel. A small, deliberate gesture, heavy with a memory no one else in the room could see. The moment passed. He flipped open the Toughbook, pressed the power key, and the screen came alive with a cold blue glow. Kyle whistled under his breath. "Oh, at least he knows how to turn it on." Mitch stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. He was used to bright, colorful diagnostic menus and neat graphical interfaces, but Elias didn't touch them. His cursor darted across the screen, opening a black command window. "What the hell?" Kyle muttered. "That's a developer console. Nobody uses that." Elias began typing, his fingers flying, as if he'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. Strings of code, parameters, and timing values scrolled down the screen. For once, Preston fell silent, frowning, then forced out a laugh. "Looks like he's hacking an ATM." Elias stopped at a line of data and pointed. "Here, timing drift, just as I said." Mitch stepped closer, bending over. His eyes widened, disbelief giving way to awe. "God almighty, he's right. The timing chip is slipping. How the hell did you know that?" Elias ignored him, kept typing, calling up a second graph. The readings shifted, the delay flashing in nanoseconds. He muttered to himself, "No need to replace it. I'll recalibrate." Preston cut in loudly, desperate to drown the silence that was swallowing the room. "Guesswork. That ECU needs to be factory ordered from McLaren. 6 months, 100 grand. What's he gonna do, magic tricks?" Elias didn't turn. His answer was clipped. "I'll generate a virtual clock to offset the drift." Ava, who had been frozen until now, stepped closer. Her eyes locked on the screen. She saw Elias writing a fresh block of code, not copy-pasting, but typing each character, each line, clean and precise. She gasped, almost involuntarily, "He's rebuilding the clock signal." Kyle staggered back, face twisted. "You've got to be kidding me. That's lab engineer stuff, not some beggar's game." Elias stayed silent, finished the last command, and hit enter. A graph appeared. The green line lay neatly over the red, the drift erased. He lifted his head. "Start it." No one moved. Mitch glanced at Preston. Preston's arms were folded, still filming, but his smile had turned brittle. Mitch inhaled sharply, then turned the key. The engine coughed once, then roared alive. A deep, steady growl filled the garage, shaking the walls of glass and concrete. No stutter, no silence. It screamed like a beast awakened. Mitch's head snapped up, eyes blazing. Kyle's jaw fell open. Ava raised her hand to her mouth, eyes locked on the tachometer, as the needle rose clean and steady. Preston lowered his phone slightly, chest heaving. On the screen, the red numbers spiked. 1.2K, 2.5K, 5K live viewers. His plan had collapsed in real time. The comments poured in. "OMG! Hire this man now? Who is he? Legend. For a beat the garage was silent except for the engine's thundering song. Elias sat still, eyes half closed, palm resting lightly on the steering wheel as though feeling its heartbeat. Kyle was the first to break the silence. "No way! He actually fixed it." Mitch turned to him, voice trembling. How did you do that?" "I tried everything." Elias opened his eyes and replied with one word. "Experience." Preston's teeth ground together, his voice sharp. "Fine. Luck. Once. But don't think this little circus changes anything." But he knew. The video meant to humiliate had reversed course. It was no joke. It was proof of a legend. Ava looked around, then leaned closer to Elias. Do you want me to save the logs?" Elias gave a small nod. "Save them. Might need it later." Her fingers trembled as she keyed in the command, but her eyes were brighter than ever. She had just witnessed the impossible. A man dismissed as nothing had done what the entire team could not. The McLaren's engine roared again, stronger, steadier. The garage vibrated with it. Elias leaned back in the seat, hand resting on the shifter, saying nothing. He didn't need to. The machine had spoken for him. The McLaren's engine purred steadily, its voice echoing through the concrete chamber like the heartbeat of a resurrected machine. Everyone stood frozen. Preston was the first to shatter the silence. He slid a hand into his wallet, pulled out a $20 bill, his fingers trembling despite the show of composure, and flicked it high into the air before slamming it down onto the glass desk. "Here's your pay. Now get out." The bill spun under the neon lights, catching flashes of silver, before landing flat with a sharp smack. The sound cut through the air like a curtain falling at the end of a play. Kyle smirked, but the smile was crooked, forced, as though he'd just watched a performance end in a way he hadn't rehearsed. Mitch's lips tightened, his eyes heavy with disapproval. Ava stood rigid, fists clenched tight. Elias opened the car door and stepped out. He didn't glance at the money, didn't bend to touch it. He laid his rough hand on the McLaren's hood, a farewell to the silver beast, then turned his back on Preston. No words, no reaction. His silence was the deepest contempt. Kyle inhaled, trying to recover his mocking tone. "So he fixed it. Still only worth $20. Mitch cut him a look sharp enough to shut him down instantly. Ava stepped forward from the parts counter, an iPad in hand. She stopped in front of Preston, her voice calm but firm. "You should see this." Preston waved her off, shoving the tablet aside. "Not interested. I've wasted enough time on that old man." Ava didn't move. She turned the screen toward him. The blue glow lit Preston's face. The headline screamed across the page, "Elias the Phantom. Vance, the only man to conquer the McLaren F1 GTR at Le Mans." Beneath it was a grainy photo. A younger Elias in a grease-stained racing suit, hoisting a championship trophy. Beside him, lit by camera flashes, stood this very silver McLaren. Kyle drifted closer, eyes glued to the image. His voice shook. "No way, that's him?" Mitch stepped nearer, peering down. His weathered face trembled. "I know that picture. I had it pinned to my garage wall for years. Elias Vance. A legend. I learned this trade from articles about him." Preston snatched the iPad, eyes darting between the photograph and the silent man before him. He stammered, No, that can't be. Photoshop. Tabloid garbage. It's not the same man." No one answered. The silence crushed his excuses. Elias stood firm, offering neither denial nor confirmation. His gaze locked on Preston, wordless, but a mirror reflecting every ounce of cowardice and smallness in the man. Kyle shrank back until his shoulders hit the wall, muttering to himself, I just called a legend a beggar." Mitch's voice came low, hammer hard. "You mocked a man the whole racing world once looked up to." Ava clutched the iPad, her eyes fixed on Elias. The truth was undeniable now. The man they had scorned minutes earlier was the very figure magazines once worshipped. The air thickened. The McLaren's growl thundered on, as if the car itself bore witness to its master. Then another sound cut through, the slam of a sliding door, footsteps of leather shoes on tile. A tall man in a gray suit entered, salt and pepper hair combed back, a Patek Philippe glinting at his wrist. Everyone recognized him instantly. Mr. Harrington, the renowned collector and owner of the silver McLaren. He paused, surveying the garage. "I heard my engine. Have you finally got it running?" Preston shot upright, fumbling the iPad behind him, voice shaky. Yes, sir, we just—" Harrington didn't finish listening. His eyes stopped, widened, then suddenly lit up. "Elias? My God, is that really you? I haven't seen you in 15 years. The garage froze solid. Mitch turned to Kyle, stunned. Kyle gaped, speechless. Ava held her breath. Preston staggered, his voice breaking. You know him?" Harrington laughed, booming, the sound filling the space. He strode forward and clapped Elias's shoulder. "Know him? He's the man who designed the ECU system for this very McLaren. No one knows it better than Elias Vance." Elias inclined his head, silent, offering no defense. He didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. Preston stumbled back, gripping the edge of his desk for balance. The $20 bill still lay on the glass, now less a payment than an indictment. And in that moment, the entire garage understood. Preston Holloway, the man who had just tossed $20 in scorn, was staring at the naked truth. He had humiliated a living legend. The garage was dead silent. The steady thrum of the McLaren's engine served as a grim soundtrack, each beat like a hammer blow against the chests of those who had mocked Elias. Harrington still kept his hand on Elias's shoulder, laughing. Heartily, voice booming, "You haven't changed, Elias. After all these years, I get to hear my engine come alive under your hands again." Elias only nodded slightly. His calloused hand gave his old friend's shoulder a light squeeze. No boasting, no self-congratulation. Yet that quiet simplicity stunned everyone in the garage more than 100 words could. Ava stepped forward, clutching the iPad close to her chest. Her voice rang out, calm but firm. "Mr. Harrington, you might want to see this." She held out the tablet. The cold blue glow lit Preston's tense face. On screen, his own voice rang clear. "Homeless man tries to fix a $20 million hypercar. It's going to be epic when you fail." Each word cut the air like a blade. Kyle lowered his gaze, remembering the sound of his own laughter joining in. His cheeks flushed red. Whether from shame or fear, even he couldn't tell. Mitch clenched his jaw, hearing his own weary sigh echo back from the recording. Harrington watched without blinking. When the McLaren's roar thundered through the video, he inhaled sharply, then lowered the iPad. His eyes locked onto Preston. "And what exactly did you gain from this circus?" His voice had hardened. "You turned a legend into a punchline. A friend of mine. And you dare to call that entertainment?" Preston stumbled back a step, his hands trembling. His voice broke. I didn't know who he was. If I had known—" "That's the point." Harrington cut him off, his words sharp as steel. "You never cared to know. All you saw was a ragged man, and you decided he had no value. You measure people by suits, by watches, by contract numbers." He straightened, every word slamming into the concrete floor like nails. "Hear me clearly. From this moment, every contract between me and Holloway's Elite Motors is cancelled. I will move all my cars elsewhere, and I will make sure the entire collector's circle knows exactly what kind of man you are." The silence detonated like a bomb. Preston staggered, clutching the edge of the glass desk as if drowning. His phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out. Caller ID. "Mr. Lattimore, Collectors Club." He froze, too afraid to answer. Kyle sucked in a breath, retreating until his back hit the wall. He stared at his shoes, his throat, too dry to force out the apology, caught there. He knew he'd just witnessed a lesson he would carry for life. He had always seen Preston as untouchable, never imagining the day his boss would be abandoned in the very kingdom of million-dollar machines he ruled. Mitch stepped forward. He bowed deeply before Elias, his voice trembling yet sincere. "Mr. Vance, seeing you repair that car today was an honor. I apologize for doubting you. In 30 years of this trade, I've never seen anyone do what you just did." Elias laid his rough hand on Mitch's shoulder, his gaze steady but not cold. "A good mechanic knows when he's wrong. What matters is that you still tried." Mitch raised his head. His eyes shone, not only with respect, but with gratitude. Harrington turned, a smile warming his face again. He looked Elias straight, in the eye, voice deep and earnest. "Elias, I've been searching for you for years. I'm opening a new R&D center. I need a leader. The only man I trust is you." The garage erupted in whispers. Kyle swallowed hard, his face pale. Mitch's jaw dropped. Preston nearly collapsed into his chair. Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward Ava, still frozen with the iPad in her hands. His eyes lingered on her for one long beat. Then he spoke, clear and firm. "I'll accept, but only if she is my lead diagnostician. She saw the problem, not a beggar." Ava's eyes widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. A heartbeat passed, then her lips broke into a radiant smile. You mean that?" Elias nodded. "I mean it." Harrington nodded sharply, decisive. "Agreed. Ava Chen, from today, you are lead diagnostician. Together with Elias, you'll head the new center." Ava nodded, tears of joy glistening, her voice tight with emotion. "Yes, sir." The McLaren roared again, this time like a victory anthem. Elias placed his hand on the hood, his eyes glowing with resolve. One chapter closed, another opened. Not with pleading, but with undeniable mastery. Behind them, Preston Holloway still stood trembling. His phone buzzed again. This time, a text. "Contract canceled." The screen glared back at him, reflecting a face drained of power, hollow and pale, a man stripped of every shred of authority. The McLaren's engine faded into silence, yet the glass walls and epoxy floor still trembled with its echo, as though the machine itself wanted to remind everyone of one truth. The legend had returned. Elias adjusted the strap of his faded canvas bag on his shoulder. He turned to Harrington and Ava. Together, the three of them walked toward the wide front doors. Afternoon light streamed through the frame, spilling a golden path across the floor. They passed rows of supercars, red Ferraris, yellow Lamborghinis, gray Aston Martins, symbols of wealth once worshipped by the world. But Elias never let his eyes linger. He strode forward with steady steps, untouched by the gleam of steel luxury. Ava clutched the iPad against her chest, her face glowing, so different from her usual exhaustion. For the first time in years, she wasn't hiding behind a parts counter. For the first time, she walked forward as someone seen, someone recognized. Harrington walked on his right, tall and proud, his silence declaring, Elias belonged here, not in the shadows of scorn. Behind them, Preston Holloway stood in ruin. The expensive suit no longer propped him up. He clung to the glass desk, staring at the $20 bill still lying there. His phone buzzed again and again. He pulled it out, the screen cold, merciless. Contract terminated. The words glared back like a sentence delivered in the palm of his hand. Kyle pressed himself into the corner, face pale. His eyes darted. Between Elias's retreating figure and Preston's collapse, the gulf between a true leader and a hollow boss had never been clearer. Mitch lowered himself into a work chair, exhaled, then spoke in a low, steady voice that carried across the garage. "See that, kid? That's the difference between a boss and a leader, between a price tag and true worth." Kyle swallowed hard, unable to argue. Preston remained frozen, a statue cracking from within. Elias, Harrington, and Ava neared the doors. Sunlight spilled inside, carving a bright path across the epoxy floor. Just before they stepped out, Harrington placed a hand on Elias's shoulder once more. His voice dropped, private and solemn. "It's good to see you back, Elias. Lily would be proud." Elias paused. He didn't answer, just gave a slight nod. In that instant, his eyes seemed to look beyond the sunlight, toward a distant place, where memory and loss still lingered. Then he turned and walked into the light, leaving the darkness behind. Ava stared at him, silent. She didn't ask, "Who is Lily?" But in her eyes was a new respect, edged with curiosity. The three of them stepped out. The garage doors slid shut, cutting off the light. Inside, Preston remained rooted among the supercars that had once been his pride. Now they stood like steel coffins for a toppled arrogance. On the glass desk, the $20 bills still lay, flat beneath the neon glare, untouched, unwanted. It sat there, a tiny but blinding stain, an emblem of misjudgment, the price arrogance must pay. Outside, the late sun gleamed across the silver McLaren Reborn. Elias placed a hand gently on its hood, closing one chapter. Then, with Harrington and Ava, he walked away, leaving behind not only the garage, but a scarred past. No more laughter, no more mockery, only light and the sound of steady footsteps, leading toward a new beginning. The story of Elias Vance isn't just about one day in a garage. Behind the frame of a gaunt man in a worn coat lies a tragic past, a loss that drove a legend to disappear from the world. But today, he proved that true talent never fades, that dignity cannot be buried by circumstance, and that when the chance arises, the truth will always find its voice. What do you think? Have you ever seen someone misjudged just because of their appearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Toch Story so you won't miss more inspiring stories like this.